Let me start with one fundamental truth. I would never have discovered that I was capable of winning 2 Olympic gold medals had I not overcome the anxiety at the thought of wearing full spandex in front of millions of people. Now that may not seem like a big deal to you, but for me, that was actually almost a deal breaker. The thinnest of materials suctioned to my body, wearing nothing underneath except underwear and a burn vest in the event of a crash. I grew up in a time where wearing your dad's baggy sweaters to school was the cool thing. So the idea of wearing a speed suit in public, well, let's just say it was uncomfortable, that I felt exposed. But sometimes that's what has to happen in order for you to overcome obstacles. Both the real obstacles and the ones that we make up in our minds. The ones that stop us from pursuing our goals and moving forward. Sometimes we have to step outside of our comfort zone. Because if we don't, we never discover what we're truly capable of. If you want to see or experience change and you want to have big results, sometimes you're going to have to be willing to feel uncomfortable. And in my case, it resulted in 2 gold medals. Now, right now, though, I want to answer the question that I'm asked most often. And that question has to do with my 2 medals. And the question is, which one's my favorite? They look totally different. Which one is my favorite? The funny thing is that the answer is so difficult to answer, but it's because the circumstances were so different. So take my Vancouver medal, which is on your left. When we went to the Vancouver Games, we were underdogs. But we were competing on home soil. So to win when you're not expected to win is one thing, but the feeling that you get when you win on home soil is a feeling that I don't think can ever be replicated. It's a feeling that I've found really hard to even put words to. But the story of the Vancouver medals themselves is, to me, what is so remarkable. The Royal Canadian Mint spent 2.5 years designing those medals for Vancouver. They made history in 2 ways. The first way, they created these medals not flat. They're wavy. And they did this because it's to reflect the topography of British Columbia. But BC is not flat. The second way they made history was that the design on the front of every single medal, so all 615 medals that were created for those games, the design on the front is different on every single one of them. All of them are different. Now, when all of these medals are brought together and they slightly overlap one another, they come together to make up one big Native American design. Now, every medal fits in this picture, and that's where mine fits right there. Now, the reasoning behind this is remarkable. The Royal Canadian Mint believed that every Olympic medalist is forever connected in some way, that we share something special. But that the design on the top of the medals are different for everyone because every athlete has a different story, a different journey, different backgrounds, different motivations for doing what we do, different obstacles we've had to overcome, but we are still all connected because of something that we've been able to accomplish. Now, I just never thought that I would be one of those athletes. Because, well, I grew up in PEI. There weren't people around me training for the Olympics in PEI, training to represent their country. So Olympians, those were TV people. Those weren't real, everyday people, normal people like I considered myself to be. And I grew up in an academic family. So although I played sports my whole life, I did it just for fun. I didn't take it seriously. Sport was always going to be extracurricular to what I was going to do to earn a living. I mean, I pursued my own career and pursued a master's degree in occupational therapy. I didn't I didn't start training for sports or taking it seriously or even lifting weights until I was 27 years old, at which time I was suddenly faced with the challenge of seeing if I could qualify for the Olympic Games in less than 5 months. In less than 5 months. Is it likely that somebody with my background, starting a new sport at the age of 27 and never having lifted weights before, would eventually find themselves at 3 Olympic Games and having won 2 Olympic gold medals? No. Highly unlikely, but possible. But winning in Sochi also has a deeper meaning for me than what any of you might expect. Because a lot of people, actually most people, didn't believe that I would actually get there. In February, in the fall, not February, that's not the fall, in the fall of 2012, I decided that I would return to the sport of bobsledding and see if I could again represent my country so that I could defend my Olympic gold medal. But I had been rehabbing a serious ankle injury and I hadn't done any running whatsoever for 1.5 years. So when I started training again that fall, I developed a pain in my right hip. I got an MRI and I sent the images to Dr. Bill Stanish, who was at the time probably one of the best orthopedic surgeons in the country. Now I sent them to him because he and I had done some charity work together, and I knew he would give me an honest opinion. He would tell me whether it was essential for me to have that surgery, and not just that it was something that could be fixed. I wanted to know if I needed that surgery to achieve my goals. So about a week later, he calls me and he says, "Okay, Heather, do you want the good news or the bad news first?" Sweet, there's good news. Obviously, if there's good news, it means I don't need surgery. So I said, "Tell me the bad news first." So he said, "Okay, well, the bad news is you need surgery." So I said, "Okay, well, if I need surgery, what on earth is the good news?" "Well, Heather, the good news is that your hip looks so damaged that you don't have to worry about trying to make a decision as to whether you need surgery or not." Now that is perspective. I had hip surgery on November 21st, 2012. At that point, I was already an Olympic champion. I had a lot of options. I could have taken the easy way out. I could have retired. I could have gone to work as an occupational therapist. I could have started a personal training career. I could have started work in television. Instead, the day after my surgery, a press release went out across the country announcing my intentions of returning to represent Canada on the international stage within 1 year, and my goal of returning to the Olympics to defend my Olympic gold medal. I had 7 interviews within a day. Now, nobody said I was crazy, at least not to my face. But they definitely questioned if I was being realistic. I mean, when I made that announcement, Kallie was having her best season ever with someone else. I hadn't pushed a bobsled in 2.5 years. I was going to be 35 years old, and I had just had invasive hip surgery 9 months prior to team selections. Getting back in that Canada won bobsled again was highly unlikely. And gold medal results in Sochi were also highly unlikely. Up until the Sochi Olympics, only 1 Canadian athlete in any sport had ever successfully defended a gold medal. Highly unlikely. But here's the thing. Highly unlikely does not mean impossible. So after day 1 of competition in Sochi, we were written off. We were no longer expected to win gold. There was even an article written in USA Today. Okay, so first day of competition. This article in USA Today made any comeback seem impossible. Here's why the US women's bobsled team has basically already won gold. This might now be my favorite article. What Kallie and I discussed before our final day of competition was pretty simple. We can't control what other people do. We can't control what other teams do. We can't control what equipment they use. We can't control how they prepared. We can't control what they have for breakfast in the morning. The only thing we can do is focus on us, focus on our own program, our own plan, and focus on the things that are actually in our control. The story of coming from behind in the Olympic Games to win a highly unlikely gold medal, achieving the highly unlikely goal of successfully defending our gold medals, and my highly unlikely recovery from hip surgery in time to even be there in the first place. Highly unlikely, written off even, but all still completely possible. Every occupation has their own unique challenges to face, and yours are no different. I've spoken to a number of groups all across the country, from government departments, financial institutions, educators, software companies, engineering companies, agricultural associations. And what I've come to realize is that the qualities it takes to be successful as an athlete are the same qualities it takes to be successful in any occupation or industry. Now, I'm not talking about the specific skills required to execute the job. I'm referring to the traits, the characteristics. I'm referring to the qualities that it takes to successfully manage challenges and to overcome the obstacles that are inevitably going to pop up. Incredible comebacks and seemingly miraculous recoveries are about those very qualities: courage, creativity, perspective, and perseverance. Not giving up because you believe in the possibilities of what could happen. I broke down my seemingly insurmountable goals down into smaller steps, which is what needs to happen when you're pursuing any goals, whether they're in sports, business, or in life. It is about focusing on the execution of every single step that has to happen along the way in order for your desired outcome to eventually become a reality. And never letting the highly unlikely part allow you to make excuses or allow you to consider the why nots. Because excuses are everywhere. The why nots, they're everywhere. You just have to start by breaking it down. Think of it this way. When you climb a mountain, you can't allow yourself to get distracted from your path. You can't allow your eyes or your mind to wander away from that next step that you need to take. Because if you do, one of three things will happen. One, you will trip and stumble. Two, you will veer off the path because you got sidetracked, stepping in softer snow, making it much more difficult for yourself and requiring a lot more time and energy. Or three, you will step on the rope in front of you, the rope that's attaching you to that person in front of you, which will cause him to be halted in his progress and therefore decreasing the efficiency of the entire rope team. I know this because this past January I summited Mount Vinson, the highest mountain in Antarctica. It was one of the most physically challenging things I've ever done. And did any of those things happen? Of course they did. They all did. Understand that you are going to trip and fall. Understand that you are going to step in soft snow. Understand that you are going to annoy people when you step on their rope. Understand that you are sometimes going to have to be willing to feel uncomfortable, just like wearing spandex in front of millions of people. Just like wearing spandex. So, in closing, I wish you not luck, but courage. I wish you perspective, perseverance, creativity, and resiliency. But most of all, I wish for you the belief that we are all capable of way more than we give ourselves credit for. Because although a goal may seem too big, and the outcome may seem highly unlikely, believe me when I say it is absolutely possible. Thanks for having me.